is not one. Here, there are no circumstances at all, let alone extraordinary circumstances, justifying sanctions against Busbee. In fact, it is out of judicial concern for encouraging zealous advocacy that the courts maintain a high bar for establishing a Rule 11 violation. But over the top zealous advocacy is precisely what, as this court has also recognized, Jay-Z's lawyers are engaging in, of which this motion is the latest and worst manifestation. Jay-Z's lawyers' relentless filing of combative motions containing inflammatory language and ad hominem attacks is inappropriate, a waste of judicial resources, and a tactic unlikely to benefit his client. This legal war is just getting crazier and crazier. If you're not familiar with Rule 11 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, it basically states that when attorneys file lawsuits, they are signing that lawsuit and attesting that they have thoroughly investigated the claims. The issue that Jay-Z's legal defense has raised with Rule 11 when it comes to Tony Busbee is they believe that Tony Busbee did not thoroughly investigate these claims. Contrary to Jay-Z's lawyers' baseless assertions, Busbee included the allegations against Jay-Z only after an investigation, including numerous interviews of the plaintiff and vetting of the information plaintiff provided. That more than satisfied Rule 11's requirements. On the other hand, Jay-Z's lawyers' motion, which they filed even in the face of this court's discouraging them from doing so, is nothing more than an improper attempt to intimidate the plaintiff and her counsel, and is factually and legally meritless. If anyone has violated Rule 11, it's Jay-Z and his lawyers, who under Rule 11C2 should be sanctioned by awarding the plaintiff and her counsel the attorney's fees and costs incurred and having to respond to their motion. In early October of 2024, Jane Doe was referred to Busbee and the Busbee firm via AVA Law Group. Attorneys at AVA Law investigated the veracity of the plaintiff's allegations. Plaintiff went through their intake process, which the Busbee firm understood to include numerous interviews, including an interview by at least one and possibly more attorneys. When the attorneys at AVA Law were convinced that the plaintiff's allegations were true, they did refer plaintiff to Busbee. Two attorneys at the Busbee firm interviewed the plaintiff. The Busbee firm's efforts included, among other things, intensive interviews amounting to cross-examinations of the plaintiff by 3 to 5 attorneys, both alone and in teams, and research and verification of numerous details of the plaintiff's account. The Busbee firm ran a background check on the plaintiff and retained a retired police detective to research and confirm all other aspects of her account. Jane Doe alleges that on September 7th, 2000, she, then 13 years old, went to Radio City Music Hall in New York to try to attend the VMAs. As plaintiff did not have a ticket to the show, she watched the VMAs on a Jumbotron outside in hopes of talking her way into either the VMAs or an after-party. Plaintiff also approached and spoke to several limo drivers parked nearby the VMAs, one for whom claimed to have worked for Diddy, and told Jane Doe that Jane Doe fit what Diddy was looking for. Later, plaintiff believed to be a large white residence with a gated U-shaped driveway. Inside the party, plaintiff recognized and spoke to several celebrities. After accepting a drink from a member of the wait staff, plaintiff began to feel woozy and lightheaded, at which point she found an empty bedroom to rest in. But soon after, Diddy and Jay-Z and another individual entered the room, at which time Diddy grabbed her and said, "You are ready to party." Thereafter, both Diddy and Jay-Z held plaintiff down and assaulted her, and she ultimately made her way to a gas station where she called her father, who then picked her up shortly before dawn. Since the initiation of this lawsuit, more than 24 past and current employees and clients of the Busbee firm have reported being Busbee, going so far as to urge the clients to bring meritless lawsuits against Busbee regarding his attempts to get justice for Jay-Z and Diddy's victims, and offering money to do so. These cases detail the illegal activities of investigators and those behind them, who are believed to be Jay-Z through his entertainment company, Roc Nation, and Jay-Z's lawyers. On December 13th, 2024, 5 days after naming Jay-Z as a defendant, plaintiff sat for an interview on NBC to recount what she called the catastrophic event. When questioned by NBC about what it claimed were some potential inconsistencies in her allegations, plaintiff told NBC that she stands by her allegations overall. NBC acknowledged that the inconsistencies in her account of the incident alleged to have happened 24 years ago do not necessarily mean that the allegations are false. They're harping on this sentence right here. NBC noted that the plaintiff's father purportedly did not recall picking her up from the gas station, as plaintiff alleges, despite it being approximately a 5-hour drive. Plaintiff told NBC she stood by her claim and that her father may have misremembered. During the interview, plaintiff told NBC that musician Benji Madden was one of the celebrities she spoke to at the party in question, but NBC determined that Madden was on tour in the Midwest at the same time. In response, plaintiff explained, honestly, what is clearest is what happened to me and the route that I took to what happened to me. Not all of the faces there are as clear. I may have made a mistake in identifying. Jane Doe is admitting that she may not have been as accurate. Finally, NBC also reported that Jay-Z and Diddy had been photographed at the VMA's after parties in Manhattan that night, and neither of the venues of those parties matched the plaintiff's description of the house that she was assaulted in. However, NBC also noted that Diddy and Mr. Busby told NBC, we have attempted to confirm the correct location. Jane Doe has been very specific and detailed about the description of the venue she says she was taken to. We won't speculate on whether there was an after party because, again, she doesn't know that. Busby further explained, we always do our best to vet each claim made, just as we did in this case. Plaintiff also told NBC, you should always fight for what happened to you. You should always advocate for yourself and be a voice for yourself. You should never let what somebody else did ruin or run your life. I just hope I can give others the strength to come forward like I came forward. On December 13th, Jay-Z's lawyers filed a pre-motion letter informing the court of their intent to immediately file for sanctions and requested a shortening of the 21-day safe harbor provision in Rule 11. On December 26th, the court issued an order admonishing Jay-Z's lawyers from repeatedly attacking Tony Busby's ethics and motives, denying Jay-Z's emergency motion to strike, and denying Jay-Z's attempt to shorten the safe harbor period to 1 day. Despite the court having admonished Jay-Z's lawyers in its December 26th order that the court discouraging the filing of their Rule 11 motion leave of court, they nonetheless did so. In a December 13th pre-motion letter, Jay-Z's lawyers stated that they intended to immediately file this motion for sanctions and requested an expedited briefing schedule from 21 days to 1 day. On December 17th, Mr. Busby received a copy of Jay-Z's motion. On December 20th, Mr. Busby filed his opposition to Jay-Z's lawyers' pre-motion letter, arguing that any Rule 11 motion on allegations concerning a child victim would be frivolous and would itself be subject to a Rule 11 motion in response. Busby pointed Jay-Z's lawyers to authority, recognizing that a victim who was also a minor at the time could not be expected to have exacting recall and command of all relevant facts. Let's talk about their argument. Under any standard, and certainly not under the high bar and very last resort of Rule 11, there is no basis here to impose any sanction, let alone dismissal, against Jane Doe or Tony Busby. What Jay-Z's motion amounts to is an outrageous and unprecedented attempt to silence Jane Doe, who alleges that 24 years ago, when she was 13 years old, Jay-Z and his co-defendant, Diddy, assaulted her. Jay-Z's celebrity status does not entitle him to special treatment by the courts, and certainly not on the mere say-so of his lawyers. Relying solely on what his lawyers say, based on the NBC report, are inaccurate details in her account of this horrific assault. Jay-Z asked this to investigate, summarily dismiss plaintiff's well-pleaded complaint in its entirety, which would run rugshot over her right to take discovery and prove her claims before a jury. Even assuming arguendo that plaintiff misremembers details for 24 years ago, that is no basis for evading the requirements of Rule 12 by dismissing her complaint under Rule 11, based solely on purported factual disputes concerning those details. This is especially true, whereas here, the purported facts disputes arise solely from the memory of a victim. Here, a child victim, which it is well established typically causes memory lapses. Indeed, it's for that reason that the courts routinely permit expert testimony to explain various syndromes that impact the victim's memory and other behaviors. As the courts have made it clear, Rule 11 sanctions will be imposed only in extraordinary circumstances, of which celebrity status is not one. Here, there are no circumstances at all, let alone extraordinary circumstances, justifying sanctions for encouraging establishing a Rule 11 violation. What this court has recognized Jay-Z's lawyers are engaging in, of which this motion is the latest and worst manifestation. Jay-Z's lawyers' relentless filing of combative motions containing inflammatory language and ad hominem attacks is inappropriate, a waste of judicial resources, and a tactic unlikely to benefit the client. Contrary to Jay-Z's lawyers' inflammatory and ad hominem attacks, Busbee included the allegations against Jay-Z in the complaint only after an investigation that more than satisfied Rule 11's requirements. On the other hand, Jay-Z's lawyers' motions, which they filed in the face of this court, discouraging them from doing so, is nothing more than an improper attempt to intimidate Jane Doe and Busbee, and is factually and legally meritless. If anyone has violated Rule 11, it's Jay-Z's lawyers, who should be sanctioned by awarding Jane Doe and Busbee fees and costs incurred in having to respond to their motion. Jay-Z's lawyers do not and cannot show that Busbee's investigation was inadequate. None of the factual issues raised by Jay-Z's lawyers justify sanctions. First, Jay-Z's lawyers contest that Jane Doe's allegation that she watched the VMAs on a Jumbotron, because they claim there was no Jumbotron at Radio City that night, that Jane Doe could have watched on a Jumbotron somewhere else, such as mere blocks away in Times Square. Second, Jay-Z's lawyers claim to have debunked Jane Doe's allegation that she approached limo drivers in hopes of gaining entry to the VMAs or after parties, because they assert that the limos were inaccessible by police barricades. But as plainly clear from the video and photos in which Jay-Z's lawyers rely, the small limo area at the entrance of Radio City is not where limos parked during the show, but rather is merely where they dropped off and picked up guests. Third, with respect to Jane Doe's allegation that the party at which she was assaulted took place at what she believed to be a large white residence with a U-shaped driveway, Jay-Z's lawyers make the irrelevant argument that photos show that he attended a party at a nightclub in New York, and Diddy was photographed at the Lotus nightclub as well as another establishment in New York. However, even the NBC report on which Jay-Z heavily relies conceded that it is not clear what time those images were taken or if Diddy or Jay-Z attended any other after party. With respect to Jay-Z's lawyer's argument that musician Benji Madden was not in New York on the night in question, the complaint does not identify any of these celebrities plaintiffs spoke to at the party. Rather, what it does say is that it merely alleges that the plaintiff recognized many celebrities and talked to several of the celebrities that she recognized. Jay-Z's argument stems from not what is alleged in the complaint, but from the post-filing interview plaintiff gave to the NBC News reporter. Jay-Z's lawyers took issue with plaintiff's allegation that her father picked her up from a gas station. This is a big one, guys. Shortly before dawn, after she was assaulted, on the grounds that NBC reported that her father does not recall. Given that this occurred 24 years ago, it's not surprising that her father may not recall a specific drive to pick up his daughter. Moreover, as plaintiff stated in her interview with NBC and reflecting, is not uncommon in assault her father nor anyone else what happened to her at the party. We rode home in silence. He didn't ask me what happened. He didn't ask me what I did or where I was. None of the 5 factual disputes raised in the motion come remotely close to satisfying the high bar for imposing sanctions under Rule 11, and none of the challenge allegations could possibly render plaintiff's claim utterly lacking in factual support. Jay-Z's motion should be denied because it seeks to evade Rule 11's requirements and impermissibility, avoid discovery. They're basically saying, Judge, just hear us out. Look at the evidence first. Let's go through discovery, then dismiss it if you see fit. Next, Jay-Z's lawyers should be ordered to pay Jane Doe's attorney's fees for opposing this frivolous motion. Jay-Z should be required to reimburse Jane Doe and Tony Busby for their legal fees in opposing this motion. For the reasons set forth above, the court should deny the motion in its entirety, and the plaintiff and Tony Busby should be awarded fees and costs incurred in opposing it. It looks like things are heating up when it comes to this. Tony Busby is not backing down. He is lawyered up himself. It is an interesting, you guys, but I like to cut through the fluff and get exactly to what you need to make a decision in the court of public opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Stay tuned. We're staying very close to this one. Stay safe out there. See you in the next one. Bye.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think it's bull. I don't know how you don't remember nothing that happened with your daughter. Like me as a father, I know I remember stuff my kids don't remember. You know what I mean? I know my daughter and my son have done some things that they probably have no clue that they did. You telling me as a father you don't know you had to drive 5 hours to go pick up your daughter from wherever? You telling me you wasn't so upset that you had to go and drive 5 hours to go pick up your daughter? You telling me she did that so many times that you forgot? Like, what about this makes sense to anyone, including the people who are saying it out loud? You, as a lawyer, somebody come up and tell me they got raped. Their daddy had to drive 5 hours to come and pick them up, but they didn't tell their daddy they got raped. They didn't look so upset. Their daddy wasn't so worried. Like, where were you? Like, your daddy ain't asked you no questions. Where your daddy picked you up from? Like, they ain't asked no questions at all. That shit just sound crazy to me. That sound wild. That sound wild. But let's get off of that because I don't like I have a big problem with like pedophilia type stuff. Like I don't really liking that stuff at all. I don't be liking that stuff at all.
This ain't I have this tweet I want to pull up from End Wokeness. And they say, Rep AOC is now telling illegals to alert their networks when ICE is coming. In English, it says, this is from AOC's, presumably from AOC's Instagram. If you see ICE in public, confirm they're actually ICE and not a different agency. They may have ICE, ERO, or HSI on their vests. Time, date, and exact location of the encounter. Timestamp when they show up and leave. Once verified, share the information with your networks. I have a question. Let's say there was a roaming band of wanted bank robbers. They had robbed a bank, and their faces were said to all of your friends, if you see law enforcement alert the criminals so that they can escape, or up advice for how you could subvert law enforcement to escape and not get arrested. I'm wondering if there's any codified laws in the books about aiding and abetting wanted criminals and providing them with information so they can escape law enforcement.
Censure.
If she's an accessory to any of the crimes that she commits, maybe we could subpoena any of these networks that she's in.
She
It
should
sounds
be-
like people
she should
who
be
we should be going after.
censored just for posting that.
If I'm a Venezuelan gang member, this sounds like the type of networking groups I want to be in. And I guess I'm thankful that Tom Homan takes ICE law and his job there at
I think-
ICE seriously to follow through with what
Even if there was one legit example of what she was saying, then she could probably get away with posting something like that and she couldn't actually be linked to it. But people who were actually aiding and abetting now can say, oh, well, I saw AOC's post.
Mm.
Yeah.
I am of the zero tolerance mind. This is not, AOC is not a lawyer. She's not providing legal advice. Granted, she's not directing a specific individual, which is probably where the protection will come in for First Amendment. I've been asking this question. At a certain point, there's going to be obstruction. There's going to be accessory, conspiracy behind some of these actions. If a lawyer is giving legal advice, I get it. People are all entitled to legal advice. But if activists are going to wanted criminals who are being sought out for arrest and they're informing them of how to escape, that's accessory, isn't it? Or, I mean, like, that's why it's the bank robber thing. Imagine if you saw the cops coming and you knew somebody was a bank robber and you whispered like, hey, drop your stuff and go hide. The police are coming. They're going to find you. Go run that way. They're going to say you obstructed justice or you aided and abetted a criminal. I don't understand why we're tolerating that. And I'm not talking about the legal asylees. We're talking about MS-13, that this information is being used to protect criminal gangs and cartel members.
I think there should be ramifications. There should be consequences. She should be censured. She should lose all of her committee appointments and stuff like that. But the Democrats don't actually take any of this stuff seriously because, you know, they're the party of law and order. They get upset because the January 6th rioters were released. Some of them did some bad stuff. But this is perfectly fine.
Imagine if the
perfectly
shoe was on
fine.
the other foot and there was a Republican saying this about the J6s.
Oh yeah, it's insane. This is exactly the same type of behavior that the vice president engaged in when there were the riots, the George Floyd riots.
Yeah, Kamala Harris sent up a bail fund,
helping to
or
bail them
posted
out.
a bail
So
fund.
this is unquestionably she should be brought up on charges for this, in my opinion, aiding and abetting. You know, obviously that won't happen, but the Democrats are in no position to criticize, you know, the release of the J6 prisoners or anything, because this is the exact kind of thing they do. These people are here illegally. They've broken the law, and ICE is trying to round them up. When she says that people should try to interfere, that's trying to interfere with a duly designated
The whole fake ICE thing is like a sleight of hand that she's played there in order to tell people, hey, listen, if ICE are trying to round you up or people that you know up, get out of there. But you can say, oh, there's fake ICE people.
They should
It's a
all go
sleight
to,
of hand.
she should go to jail.
I feel like this
100%.
is gearing up for what will be the first thing that the left pushes back against Trump hard on in his first 100 days. It's going to be a lot of this immigration stuff and deportation stuff. We're going to see the recycled old lines of keeping kids in cages. We're going to see AOC do another photo op where she's dressed in all white, crying on a cage. So different things like this is what we should be expecting to see in the next month or two. And this is her just going through the motions.
And remember, this is something the American people want. This is a popular thing that's happening. Like, the American people want to see people that are here illegally rounded up and sent home. And she is doing this because she's not, it's not about her base or anything, or the people that voted for her. It's about the ideological position of the left.
They want to see the Laken Riley Act enforced, which I believe we will see be the first law that Trump signs.
Absolutely amazing that Ro Khanna was like, he voted against it because it allows the deportation of an individual simply for being arrested. And it's like, but when they're here illegally, yes. It's like, okay, why are we going to give them a trial and then deport them after the fact? Like, an illegal immigrant comes in, we catch them committing a burglary, they get arrested, and then we go, no. We're going to deport them anyway, but spend the money on a trial first, and then we'll deport them afterwards, regardless of the outcome. That makes no sense.
And that's the thing with the murderer of Laken Riley. This was an illegal immigrant who was arrested multiple times in multiple different states, and then ended up doing heinous crimes. And then obviously,
It's like when the left in America say no person is illegal except for every single person who
Off.
This is it. Take a look at this video. HSI, it says.
I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean,
Investment Securities. What does it say here? It says Molina Flynn Law Office. Joseph Molina. Looks like they might be serving some papers or something. Do they have a piece of paper in his hand? Look at that. Is that a notebook? What does he got right there? You see in his hand?
yeah,
I wonder if they've got some kind of warrant.
don't know. But yeah, I mean, this is what should happen to all lawyers that in any way, get in the way of a duly deputized federal employee or whatever. Rounding people up. This is exactly what should happen. There should be repercussions for AOC. Anyone in Congress that is helping to prevent people from being deported, there should be actual legal consequences.
and AOC
Look
would
at
actually
this
be fine
response.
in prison.
Half of the restaurants in Providence will be closing in the next few days. 75% of the cooking and cleaning staff are illegals. NYC's restaurants will be closing as well. Okay.
It's fine. It's cold out. It's fine.
I say, okay. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand this argument they're making where it's like a bunch of criminals have broken the law, but they cook and clean.
Like we need more oxtail.
It's insane.
do you think they allow contracting for illegal immigrants in New York City in these restaurants?
Yep.
Is that,
That's been the worst thing about all of this is the special protections for illegal immigrants and the penalties on legal citizens and immigrants. The fact that in New York they were putting up illegal immigrants in hotels with some reported at PlayStations, and Gen Z is like, I wish I can afford to get a bachelor apartment. You know what a bachelor apartment is? No bathroom. And this is what Gen Z is trying to rent. Meanwhile, illegal immigrants are getting luxury hotels converted for them.
It's funny how it's the exact same playbook in the United States as it is in the UK as well. Have you seen what they do for the immigrants in the UK? They'll give them like a loaded visa card. They'll give them dental work, luxury hotels, and then if anyone ever complains about the immigrants, it's like, oh well, they make curry.
well, your national dish over there is what chicken tikka masala. So
Yeah, well, you don't
butter
like butter
chicken
chicken.
or-
Butter
Butter
chicken.
chicken isn't even India. You go to India, you can't get a butter chicken.
That's right. It's British.
Yeah.
it's uniquely British dish.
I mean, try eating Chinese food in China. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
It's disgusting over there.
It's bat
Yeah,
soup.
it's
Do the
amazing.
real proper Chinese food here.
I went to Taiwan last year, and it was the grossest market I've ever been. Like, no offense, Chinese and Taiwanese people, but the grossest food.
What,
I've
did you
ever
get the
seen in my
gutter
life.
oil?
I didn't get anything in the end. I just walked through it, and I was like,
You know about the gutter oil, right?
"Oh, I've seen that how they reuse it.
They strain oil out of the sewers to
yeah,
reuse.
yeah. Ugh, it's just gross. You can kind of smell it when you go
Yep.
there.
That's why they say don't eat street food in China.
That's why the
Butter
bat soup at the beginning of COVID was so like believable. People are just like, yeah, it was a bat soup, and they would do that.
People need to understand the size of cities in China as well. I mean, 1 billion plus people. They've got
Eat what you can.
New Yorks all over the place. You
Yeah.
know, so these are big cities.
Yep.
But excuse me, I'm curious. My concern with watching lawyers get served and stuff is what point does it go too far?
I guess we need to really know exactly what's going on here beyond the caption reading FBI.
Well, I mean, just like
Training in
hypothetically,
office
like
of an immigration lawyer. Who knows? Maybe he was
I
defending.
don't want to
criminal
see
or this.
I don't want to see lawyers.
We are following breaking news at this hour here on Live Now from Fox. You're taking a live look at the White House as we have learned that President Trump is now ordering action to be taken against the country of Colombia, saying, quote, "I was just informed that two repatriation flights from the United States with a large number of illegal criminals were not allowed to land in Colombia. This order was given by Colombia's socialist president, who is already very unpopular amongst his people. His denial of these flights has jeopardized the national security and public safety of the United States. So I have directed my administration to immediately take the following urgent and decisive retaliatory measures." And he also just shared that information in a social media post. Some of those measures include an emergency 25% tariffs on all goods coming into the United States. In 1 week, the 25% tariffs will be raised to 50%. Also issuing a travel ban and immediate visa revocations on the Colombian government officials and all allies and supporters. Visa sanctions on all party members, family members, and supporters of the Colombian government, enhanced customs and border protection inspections of all Colombian nationals and cargo on national security grounds, treasury, banking, and financial sanctions to be fully imposed. President Trump saying, quote, "These measures are just the beginning. We will not allow the Colombian government to violate its legal obligations with regard to the acceptance and return of the criminals they forced into the United States." This is a look right here of the social media post that he just issued there on Truth Social. That's on the left-hand side of your screen. On the right-hand side of your screen, that is a social media post by a Fox News journalist, Bill Melugin. As we continue to follow this breaking news, as we have learned that President Trump now ordering action to be taken against Colombia after two flights from the United States with a large number of illegal criminals were not allowed to land in Colombia. President Trump saying that the order was given by Colombia's president, and his denial of these flights, President Trump writes, quote, "has jeopardized the national security and public safety of the United States." And therefore, he has ordered his administration to take a number of retaliatory measures, including emergency tariffs, a travel ban, revoking visas, sanctions, and also financial sanctions as well. President Trump is continuing to make massive changes to immigration policies, including halting refugee arrivals, fast-tracking deportation, military troops to the southern border, lifting long-time rules restricting immigration enforcement near schools, churches, and hospitals, and also ordering federal prosecutors to investigate state or local officials who they believe are interfering with his crackdown on illegal immigration. I wanted to share this social media post from the DEA of Rocky Mountain saying that the DEA and federal local partners had conducted an early morning operation at a makeshift nightclub in Adams County. They say drugs, weapons, cash were seized, and about 50 migrants were taken into custody, many connected with one of the gangs from Venezuela. I also wanted to share this social media post right here from the DEA in Chicago, and right in the middle, that is Border Czar Tom Homan. It says the DEA, along with our Justice Department partners, is assisting DHS, Gov, and other federal law enforcement partners with their immigration enforcement efforts. Now, Border Czar Tom Homan warned that daily deportation numbers, they are set to rise in the coming weeks as President Trump's administration begins to expand its operations. On Friday, ICE made 593 arrests. On Thursday, 538 arrests. U.S. military planes carrying migrants have also landed in Central America as a start to deportations. Meanwhile, lawmakers in Democratic-led states are proposing